There we are.
All right.
Good afternoon. My name's John Gilkison, and this is Joseph Yaroch. And we got together this afternoon to shoot a video on electric cars. And since we both own one. And so I'm going to let Joseph tell you first about himself, since you're familiar with me. And here's Joseph's electric car. It's a PHEV. It's a Chevy Volt. What year is it? 2015?
No. I bought it it's a 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead, Joseph.
All right.
You want to tell a little bit about yourself and how you came to buy the car? And
Oh, sure. Yeah. Basically, I had been an owner of a VW diesel. It was a sport wagon. I was very happy with the car. I was averaging about 42 miles per gallon, and I thought I was being environmentally responsible in buying it because I do a lot of expressway driving. When the diesel scandal came out, Volkswagen announced they were going to buy my car back. And so I had a hard deadline for when to purchase a car. I was going to have to replace it. And given that the economic environment for me was fairly positive, but the environmental environment was turning distinctly negative with the new president that we had elected, I decided to get a much more environmentally conscious car. And given the deadline and the relative lack of availability of good electric vehicles in Las Cruces, New Mexico, I was somewhat shuttled into the choice that I made. The Chevy Volt has about a 52-mile range on battery. So it's good for those 3 days out of the work week that I am driving around in Doñana County. There are 2 days a week I have to drive out of town, including Truth or Consequences. That's a 180-mile round trip, and that was really stretching the limits of a pure electric vehicle. So the plug-in hybrid was really the most sensible choice for me.
have you figured out any percentage of EV only mode that you're doing on average? Do you know?
I do know because the phone app tells me it's about 54% is electric miles. And
That's about what I do.
that translates into a real world, in my use case, miles per gallon of 85. So ignoring just the electricity use, I'm using about the amount of gasoline I would use if I had an 85 mile per gallon car.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, my name's John Gilkison, and I came about this because I was the vice president of an energy efficiency company called Megawatts Inc. in the 1990s, and they went out of business. So my interest has always been fuel efficiency or energy efficiency, and since about 2014 or so, we wanted to get a fifth wheel trailer. My wife wanted it. We had a small trailer, but it wasn't working out. And so we bought a Ford pickup truck to tow the trailer, and it was the only vehicle we had. And so then we got the trailer. So after all that settled out, we realized as a daily driver the pickup truck was atrocious on fuel use. Probably using $1,800 worth of fuel a year just to go back and forth. And so we wanted a more fuel efficient vehicle. And well, we found the 2015 Ford C-Max Energi on the lot, and it had been there a year down in El Paso. And they had it marked for 30% off, so we jumped on it. And it's turned out also, as Joseph said, we're doing 50 to 60% of our driving in electric mode. So, so that's been our story. Also, I was a blog writer. I have been a blog writer for EV World since 2005, and I've been writing on fuel efficiency in vehicle, um, electric cars, and climate change issues and so forth since then. So it kind of all dovetails together. We want to get a pure electric car in less than 2 years from now, approximately 2 years from now, because our truck will be paid off and we'll be able to afford a car payment. We want to pass our Ford C-Max on to our daughter. So what are your plans, Joseph?
Well, I do expect to operate this Chevy Volt until I retire in about 5 years. It's very difficult to know what sort of use case I'm looking at that time in my life. It's somewhat likely we will downsize, move to a smaller house in town at that point without weekly commuting to consider. A pure electric car would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Before that, my wife is likely to want to replace her Prius C, which is not a plug-in hybrid, it's a straight hybrid. And she's averaging 56 miles per gallon driving it around town. I think a pure electric car would probably be the most sensible replacement for her.
I do too. I'm not even seeing why you'd have to move. To me, you live in town.
Right.
We live in Radium Springs, so and you live out Picacho Hills, which is just west of town, right?
Right.
So yeah, I can see how you'd get on the interstate out here and go all the way into to work.
Yeah. No, this is a nice location for my life the way it is now.
Yeah.
And we may not move. Who knows? But the point being is that there are these variables that you have to consider when you're planning things out. And who knows what models will be available even in 2 years from now.
They're available now.
Yeah.
In this year, I mean, there's been 2 or 3 200 plus mile range cars hit the market. So in another 2 years, you say, when do you think she wants to trade up?
I'm guessing 2 years. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, there'll be a plethora of 200 plus mile range cars in the market. So what I was surprised, I was pleasantly surprised when I started driving electric. I mean, once you drive an electric vehicle, all of a sudden internal combustion engine vehicles seem primitive. They seem like something from the Victorian age or something.
Right.
They literally do, because there's no transmission, there's no shifting, they're 3.5 times more energy efficient. They're quiet, they're powerful, they accelerate quickly, all those things. And I can see it. I think there's an S-curve coming of electric cars, where there's going to be a mass adoption of them over the next 10 years for sure, where a large percentage of the population is going to switch to electric drive once they find out it's 50% or more cheaper to drive an electric car. So right now there's some issues that are standing in the way, I think, but those are being resolved.
Well, right. I mean, I think you had a similar experience when you went into the dealership, that they weren't primed to sell you an electric car, and they probably would not have sold it to you if you hadn't gone in and asked.
Right.
Yeah, I had the same experience somewhat later. Even walked into the dealership, and the guy was kind of perplexed when I told him what car I wanted.
Was that here?
That was here.
Okay, yeah. I've talked to him before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I knew more about the car than he did.
Sure.
I was asking him all these questions he didn't know. And
Well, we have more of a problem than a lot of people have around the country, because we live in southern New Mexico, and the distances between cities out here are much further, and the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles is non-existent or much more widespread. So you literally need, probably, to do traveling, and if you live out here, you need a vehicle with about 300 miles of range, really.
absolutely.
That's what I would say. So I got my eye on a Tesla Model 3, and I'm hoping in 2 years from now they'll either be cheaper at the 310 mile range, or there'll be some used ones out there that are a couple years old that I can get my hands on, which I think I would have no problems getting a used electric vehicle simply because they're so durable. Tesla's claiming their drivetrain and stuff on the Model 3 is rated for 1 million miles, so why would I quibble about
Right.
something that has 30,000 miles on it? That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So have you spotted any vehicles that are interesting to you?
Well, that's a good question. The first people I knew who had an electric car got a Nissan Leaf, but there is an issue with the batteries in the high temperature environment we have here in southern New Mexico. At least the older models did not have an active thermal management.
They still don't, not even yet.
Yeah, so I'm just going to cross that out.
Me too.
I would still look at the Chevy Volt. I know you have your eyes on a particular model that we might consider.
Hyundai Kona and Kia Niro are two.
Yeah.
They're kind of small SUV like.
Yeah, Cindy really she likes the small form factor. I mean, she loves her Prius C, which is a very tiny car.
She's going to need something a little larger to get some batteries in it.
That's right. That's going to be an issue, but
Exactly.
She doesn't necessarily do what I think is right, but I trust her to make a good decision on that.
I think she ought to take your car from you and you ought to buy one.
Right. Well, we could do that. I mean, I could get a Tesla 3 and rig up the boat tail like you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. We got 3 minutes here left.
Okay.
So recently, me and a friend in Texas did a blog on how a Tesla Model 3 could get 440 miles of range up from the current 310 miles of range simply by improving the drag coefficient from 0.23 down to 0.18, which is not a stretch. It's not hard to do. We'd add a boat tail to the vehicle, which would be something you could put on and take off. It wouldn't be a permanent fixture. It would increase the length of the vehicle, obviously, but it would only be for highway travel. You wouldn't use it around the city or anything. And the numbers on it are tremendous. You need to go to evworld.com, which is an online magazine called EV World. And I'm a blogger there. You'll find me under John Gilkison in the commentary section. And so you'll see all the numbers there. I've also shot a couple YouTube videos on the same subject, which you can find. One of them's titled 100 miles per gallon at 100 miles per hour. And the other one's a Tesla Model 3 with 440 miles of range. So this camera is always hunting, so you kind of got to move around occasionally just to keep it on. That's why I'm not as fidgety as I look. So anyway, yeah, it could at normal highway speeds you would be getting like 198 miles per gallon at 70 miles per hour or something like that.
MPGE, that is.
Yeah, MPGE, which is equivalent. No doubt about it. So we still got a minute and a half. Do you have any thoughts on the future of electric cars or anything in your mind?
Well, yeah, the one thought I have, point that I'd really like to make is that this is coming. John has referred to it as a silent revolution. I'm hoping that it goes smoothly. There's absolutely no question in my mind that within 10 years, half the fleet's going to be electric. Unfortunately, the general public is not yet getting up to speed on this, and there's a real lack of awareness and knowledge on the part of the general public. Of course, that's one of the reasons why we formed this organization, and we're trying to get the word out so people aren't caught unaware.
Okay, we got 20 seconds, so I'm going to have to wrap this up, okay?
Very good.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, the general public may not need to be aware. They just may need to be looking over their shoulders and see what the people they like and admire are doing, and they'll run down and buy one.
That's right.
So we're going to let you go. We'll see you all down the road, okay? Bye-bye.